Hello viewers, so welcome to my channel. I'm Hasham Ali Khan. In this video, I'm going to explain you about other perquisites. In the last video, I have completed the meaning of the term perquisites. Perquisites means any kind of benefit given by the employer to the employee or their family members, either in cash or in kind. This is the meaning of the term perquisite. The perquisite may also be taxable. So income tax has divided the perquisites into four different categories. Perquisites taxable in the hands of all employees. Perquisites taxable only in specified cases. Then special perquisites. Last one, tax-free perquisites. So one by one we have to discuss. First one, those perquisites which are taxable to all employees. A list have been specified. So first one, very important one, was rent-free accommodation. I have explained you about the provision, how to calculate the value of rent-free accommodation. And two videos I have prepared on problems of calculating the value of rent-free accommodation. So if you have not watched those videos, I suggest you to go to the playlist of my channel, select the subject income tax for the assessment year 21-22. Select the video for perquisites, watch those videos, be acquainted with the meaning, provisions, then only you can come to this video. Because whatever I am discussing here now, this is very, very important. These points will come in the problems when we do. When we go and do the problem on computation of income from salary, all these points, whatever I am discussing now, this will appear in the problems. So if you are perfect on the theory, then only you can be able to do the problems. Otherwise, every problem you will find difficulty. That's my request. Don't skip in between, watch the video till the end. Now, in this video, I'm going to explain you the other perquisites which are taxable in the hands of all employees. First perquisite, already we have discussed, rent-free accommodation. Second perquisite onwards, I'm going to explain in this video. Take a screenshot of the points which I have written. Then I'll explain all the perquisites. Come on. Second perquisite, concession in rent of accommodation. First of all, an employer may give rent-free accommodation. Sometimes the employer will give the accommodation not rent-free, but at concessional rate. Example, a flat whose rental value is suppose 30,000 per month, but the employer is charging only 5,000. This is called rent, that means the accommodation given at a concessional rate. So area wise, the rental value is 30,000, but the employer is charging only 5,000. This is called concession. Income Tax Act says if an employer provides accommodation at a concessional rate, that concession is also a taxable perquisite. So how to find out the value of this perquisite? We have to treat the accommodation as rent-free, completely rent-free, and calculate the value. From that value, deduct the rent paid by the employee. Example, the value of rent-free accommodation comes to 1 lakh, value of rent-free accommodation. But during the whole previous year, the assessee has paid 20,000 rent to the employer. So the value of rent-free accommodation 1 lakh. Amount paid by the employee as rent is 20,000. So 1 lakh minus 20,000, 80,000 is the concession in rent that is taxable in the hands of employee. First one completed. Second, insurance premium paid by the employer. Sometimes an insurance policy is taken by the employee in his name, but the employer is paying the premium. So whatever employer paid the insurance premium, that is a taxable perquisite in the hands of all employees. Fourth one, Any personal monetary obligation of the employee met by the employer. Sometimes a personal monetary obligation is there of the employee. Employee has to pay from his own pocket, but employer has agreed to pay that amount. That is also a taxable perquisite. Example I have given here. If the employer pays club bills, personal expense or personal obligation of the employee. Suppose the employee has become a club member. When he has become a club member, the employee himself should pay the membership fee. But here employer has agreed. Employer tells to the employee, you become the club member, we will pay the fees to the club. In that case, it's a monetary obligation of the employee paid by the employer. Next one, if the employer pays or reimburses school or college fees of the children, then it is a taxable perquisite. Suppose if the employee's children are studying in school or colleges, so it is the responsibility of the employee to pay the fees to schools or colleges. But sometimes employer agrees to pay or reimburse. Pay or reimburse. Reimburse means first of all it will be paid by the employee. Later on that amount will be repaid back by the employer. It's a taxable perquisite in the case of all employees. If the employee employs a sweeper or gardener or any other servant, but the employer pays the salary, then it is perquisite. Sweeper or gardener. These are the servants who are appointed by the employee. Actually, appointment was done by the employee, but the salary of these servants, sweeper and gardener, is paid by the employer. Suppose I am the employer, you are the employee. You have appointed a sweeper and gardener for your house, for cleaning. In that case, the employer, myself, I have agreed to pay the salary to sweeper and the gardener. Income Tax Act says whatever salary paid by the employer is a taxable perquisite in the hands of the employee. Next one, income tax or professional tax paid or reimbursed by the employer. Income tax is an obligation of the employee. Employee has to pay income tax. Employee has to pay professional tax. But sometimes employer has agreed. There is a contract, agreement, that employer agreed to pay the income tax of the employee or professional tax of the employee. Then whatever employer pays, that is a taxable perquisite. Next, electricity, water, gas bill of the domestic connections are in the name of the employee, but the bill is paid by the employer. Electricity bill, water bill, gas bill. If the bill connection is in the name of the employee, but the bill is paid by the employer. For example, I am the employer, you are the employee. You are in your house, electricity is in your name, water bill is in your name, gas bill is in your name, but employer agreed that I will pay all the bills. It's the obligation of the employee met by the employer. It is a taxable perquisite. Remember, whatever I am discussing now, keep it, listen carefully. All these points we are going to come in the problems while doing income from salary. So you must be in a position to say whether it is taxable or not taxable. All these points, whatever I am discussing. So if in the above cases, actual amount paid by the employer is the value of the perquisite. These are the examples I have given, A, B, C, D, E. These are the examples of monetary obligation of the employee met by the employer. Whatever employer paid, that is the value of the perquisite. Now, next, fifth one. Interest-free loans or concession in interest on loan. Sometimes an employee is taking a loan from the employer. An employee, if he takes the loan from bank, the employee has to pay interest to the bank, right? Sometimes the employee will take the loan from the employer without any interest. There is an agreement. There is an agreement between the employer and the employees. Employer says if any employee wants a loan, we will give you the loan without any interest. That means employee is getting the benefit. No need to pay the interest. So this benefit of not paying the interest is a taxable perquisite or concession in the rate of interest. Concession in the rate of interest. Example, if an employee takes a loan from bank, the banker is charging 20% rate of interest. 20% rate of interest banker is charging on loans, whereas employer is providing the loan to employees at only 5%. That means employee is getting the benefit. If the loan is taken from bank, the employee has to pay 20% rate of interest. The same employee, if he takes the loan from employer, the employer is charging only 5% rate of interest. In that case, there is a benefit to the employee. Income Tax Act says that is also taxable perquisite. So if the employer grants loan to employees for personal purpose as interest-free loan, or it gives on loan concession rate of interest, then tax. The loan may be given to the employee or their family members, not necessarily only employee. Even if the loan is given to family members of the employee, then also the employee is taxable. The value of the perquisite is equal to interest charged by SBI to its customers on its lending. How much is the value of the perquisite? Income Tax Act says if interest-free loan is given, then we have to see what is the rate of interest charged by State Bank of India on its lending. That rate of interest is the value of the perquisite. If an employee has taken loan for medical treatment, now remember point. If the employee has taken a loan for medical treatment in an approved hospital for the specified diseases, then it's a tax-free perquisite. Income Tax Act says. Income Tax Act says if an employee has taken a loan for medical treatment, the medical treatment is being done in an approved hospital for specified diseases. The specified diseases are like cancer, AIDS, etc. Severe list is given. A severe diseases list is given by the Income Tax Act. If the employee or their family member are suffering from those diseases and the employee is getting the treatment in an approved hospital, then whatever amount is paid by the whatever loan is given by the employer to the employee, tax free, that is not at all taxable, not a taxable perquisite. Next one, if an employee has taken a loan or petty loan during the previous year from the employer aggregating 20,000, then it becomes a tax-free perquisite. One more very important provision you have to remember. If the employee has taken petty loan, what is petty loan? The loan of 20,000 and below, not more than 20,000, or aggregating 20,000. That means once he has taken for 5,000 loan, next time he has taken for 2,000, next time he has taken 3,000, like the small loans he has taken, aggregating the total loan is only 20,000. Income Tax Act says tax-free perquisite. Don't calculate any interest on those loans. That is completely tax-free. So interest on petty loan is a tax-free perquisite. That's all. The 5 perquisites I have discussed. Now 6th perquisite, holiday facility. When holiday is availed by the employee or their family members and expenses on tour, traveling, accommodation and other expenses are paid or reimbursed by the employer, then it's a taxable perquisite for all employees. Sometimes the employee is availing a holiday. So he is availing holiday and spending the money on himself and also on the family members. The expenditure on traveling and touring and then accommodation and other expenses incurred, all these expenses are paid by the company, paid by the employer or reimbursed by the employer. Then it is a taxable perquisite in the hands of all employees. Next one is free meals. A lengthy discussion is there in free meals. Again about free meals we'll discuss in tax-free perquisite also. Right now only remember one point. If free meals are provided by the employer to the employee after business hours. Suppose the business hours are from 9 to 5. 9 to 5. Any free meals are given by the employer to the employee after 5 o'clock. After 5 o'clock. Then in that case, whatever the value of free meals, that is a taxable perquisite. What will happen if the free meals are given during the business hours? I will explain while dealing with tax-free perquisite in the next video. Next, medical facilities. This is very, very important. Very important. So regarding medical facilities, reimbursement of medical expense incurred by the employee in an unrecognized hospital is a taxable perquisite, fully taxable perquisite. Example, reimbursement of medical expenses incurred in an unrecognized hospital. Mr. X is an employee. He was suffering from some disease. He is getting the treatment in an unrecognized hospital. The medical expenses are reimbursed by the employer. So Mr. X was suffering from disease. He went to unrecognized hospital. The bill of the hospital comes to 2 lakh rupees. Mr. X has paid from himself. But later on that 2 lakh rupees was reimbursed by the employer. Income Tax Act says that 2 lakh rupees is taxable perquisite in the hands of Mr. X, employee. So any expenses incurred in an unrecognized hospital and that expenses are reimbursed by the employer, it is a taxable perquisite. That's it. Remember, very important point. Then reimbursement of medical expense incurred by the employee in a recognized hospital is a tax-free perquisite. So which is a recognized and which is not recognized, the list is given by the Income Tax Act. Right now, we are not being concerned about which are the recognized hospital. Only you have to remember that is it recognized or unrecognized. That will be given in the problem. So if the expenses are incurred in a recognized hospital and reimbursement of medical expenses incurred by the employer is completely tax-free. Unrecognized, fully taxable. Recognized, completely tax-free, not taxable. Now, if the employer pays medical expense directly to the hospital, sometimes the employer pays medical expenses directly to the hospital. It will not be reimbursed. There is difference between direct payment and reimbursement. Reimbursement means first it is paid by the employee, later on it will be repaid by the employer. That is called reimbursement. But direct payment means without any involvement of the employee, directly the employer is paying the bill to the hospital. What is the case? If the employer pays medical expense directly to the hospital for the treatment of employee or his family member in a private nursing home, either employee or their family member in a private nursing home in respect of specified diseases. Again, Income Tax Act has given the specified diseases. If the employee or family members are suffering from specified diseases and getting the treatment in a private nursing home and the medical bill is directly paid by the employer to the hospital, then it is a tax-free perquisite. It is a tax-free perquisite. Next one, treatment is done in hospital maintained by the employer to the employer or any other family member is a tax-free perquisite. Sometimes the employer will maintain the hospital. The company is there, employer, the company is maintaining a hospital, keeping all medicines, so doctor, facility, every facility is being kept for the services to the employees and their family members. So if an employee is getting the treatment in the employer-run hospital, Income Tax Act says it's a tax-free perquisite. All these points you have to remember carefully because these points are going to come in the problem. You must be in a position to say whether it is taxable or tax-free. Next one is the employer pays for the treatment of employee or their family members in a hospital maintained by the government or hospital approved by the government is a tax-free perquisite. Now, employer pays the medical expenses incurred by the employee or their family members in a government hospital or approved by the government hospital. In that case also it is a tax-free perquisite. Last one is for reimbursement of medical expense incurred by employee in a foreign country. Sometimes the employee or their family members are getting the medical treatment not in India but in a foreign country, and reimbursement is made by the employer. Then what is the taxability? Here the provisions are given by the Income Tax Act. For example, Mr. X is an Indian. He is working in India, but he was suffering from a disease. He wants to get the treatment from America, and all the expenditure is agreed to be borne by the employer. In that case, what is a taxability? What are the provisions of taxability? Income Tax Act says for treatment of employee or family member, it is a tax-free perquisite. Whatever the medical expenses incurred in America, whether on the employee or their family members for medical treatment, the treatment expenditure completely tax-free. Example, Mr. X getting the treatment in America, the bill, medical expenses bill is 5 lakh. Complete 5 lakh rupees reimbursed by the employer. It's a tax-free perquisite, not taxable in the hands of Mr. X. Secondly, for stay abroad of the patient and one attendant, because patient himself or herself cannot get the treatment, one attendant is required. The expenditure incurred on staying by the employee and one attendant, a reimbursement made by the employer is a tax-free perquisite. 5 lakh rupees just now I told you is the medical bill. Apart from medical bill, staying there of the patient and one attendant, the staying expenditure comes to 2 lakh. And that 2 lakh rupees are also reimbursed by the employer. Income Tax Act says that is also tax-free. The medical expenses, staying expenses, both are tax-free. Next one, for expenses on travel of the patient and one attendant, if the GTI of the SSC employee is less than 2 lakh, tax-free. Now, traveling expenses, airfare, going from India to America, the travel expenses, airfare, airlines ticket, the ticket of patient and one attendant is, let it be 1 lakh rupees. So 1 lakh rupees is the airfare. Now this 1 lakh rupees is also reimbursed by the employer. Now Income Tax Act says, check the GTI, gross total income of the employee. If the gross total income of the employee is below 2 lakh rupees, then travel expenses is also tax-free. Reimbursement of travel expenses is also tax-free of the patient and one attendant. If the gross total income is more than 2 lakh, then this travel expenses of the patient and one attendant is a taxable perquisite. So threshold is given 2 lakh. If the GTI is less than 2 lakh, even travel expenses is also tax-free perquisite. If the GTI is more than 2 lakh, then travel expenses reimbursement is a taxable perquisite. That's all. Now, fixed medical allowance. Allowance is different from perquisite. Allowance means a monetary amount, fixed monetary amount which is monthly paid. Sometimes the employer will pay medical allowance. That means whether the employee is falling sick or not, monthly along with basic pay he is getting medical allowance. Income Tax Act says medical allowance is 100% taxable. No provision, nothing. You have to see the word medical allowance. Medical facility is different from medical allowance. Medical facility will be provided only when something happens to the employee or the family members. But medical allowance, whether anything happens or not, fixed amount the employee is getting. That is completely taxable for all the employees. That is a fixed medical allowance. That's all. So this is a discussion up to point number 2 to point number 8 I have discussed. Remember, whatever I am discussing is very, very important. You must have the patience to listen this provision. Otherwise, income tax will be a difficult subject. Don't think that just solving the problem you will get the command. No. Solving the problem depends on this provision. If you do not understand the provision, how you can be able to solve the problem? That is crystal clear. So follow my suggestions. Have patience in listening this lecture. Inshallah, we'll continue the next topic in the next video.